I'm now to Ottawa, where the inquiry into the government's use of the Emergencies Act earlier this year continues. Outgoing Mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, speaking today.
You can have the summary of the timeline, and I believe the timeline you're referring to is, yes, so we're going to take that one.
Okay.
And you can have the timeline of events as, and that is the institutional report of the City of Ottawa with respect to the timeline of events, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you've indicated that, are there any notations on that one?
Not this one, no.
Okay, thank you. And can you tell us why you're having that with you today for your testimony?
Just to be clear on the dates, the sequence of events that took place earlier this year.
Okay, so it's a way to remember the dates.
Correct.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that you were not involved in the day-to-day planning and preparation for the convoy's arrival in Ottawa. Is that right?
That's correct.
And that was left mainly to the city manager, Steve Kanellakis, and others within the city. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And I understand that you had a briefing with former Chief Slowly and Mr. Kanellakis on the 26th to talk about what to expect in terms of the convoy's arrival. So this is now before the arrival of the convoy. Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
And can you tell us what the chief told you in terms of what to expect?
Well, the information was not particularly clear. No one had a real sense of how many vehicles were coming, whether they were going to stay a long period of time, what their actual plan was. There was a sense on the chief indicated that the group was somewhat disorganized and did not speak with one voice.
And in terms of scope, scale, number of vehicles, number of protesters, can you give us a sense for what you were told?
That they were coming from 3 different locations, the West, the East, and Central Canada, to convene on or near Ottawa, and that they were upset with the mask mandates, which were primarily, as you know, a provincial matter, but they were upset with the federal government as well.
And did he give a sense for how long you could expect them to be in Ottawa?
My recollection was that they would be here for 1 or 2 days. That was the norm. You know, a lot of people protest in our city, and our police do a very good job of controlling and managing the situation. And to the best of my knowledge, we never had a protest in the 25 years I've been in public service that lasted more than a couple of days, and then they gathered their signs and placards and went back home.
So it was 1 or 2 days was the sense that you got from the chief in terms of how long the convoy would be in Ottawa?
Yeah, there was a bit of a moving agenda for the organizers of the convoy, because at one point they had, I believe, Mr. Bernier wanting to speak, and then he wasn't able to come on the Fridays or the Saturday, and then it was pushed back a day. So there seemed to be some challenges that they were having as to who was going to speak and when they were going to speak, and that prolonged it. My view at the time was that it would probably last a couple of days. My understanding was most of these truckers were independent, and if they weren't on the road doing business and pickups, they were losing money, so that they would in fact go home on Saturday or Sunday, and obviously that did not happen.
Right, and the chief didn't give you any indication that it would be anything other than the weekend?
No, we didn't have any indication. We had a memo or an email from Steve Ball, the Hotel Association, indicating that one of the organizers had come and inquired about a long-term booking of 30-plus days at a number of hotels. They wanted, I think, 9,000 to 10,000 hotel rooms.
And did that concern you at all?
Well, it did, except, you know, when you're making a booking, you have to have some evidence you're going to follow through with it. So simply asking about booking 11,000 rooms when the city only has about 11,000 rooms at its disposal, the tourism industry. I don't think most took it seriously, for the simple reason that there was no follow-up. It was simply asking about rooms and room availability and rates, I suppose, and then it didn't really go anywhere, because my understanding is the bulk of the people with large rigs stayed in their cabs. They didn't need hotels.
And so in your discussions with Chief Slowly on the 26th, was there any discussion about what would be done in the event that the protesters decided to stay longer than a couple of days?
I don't recall any other discussion on that at that point.
Okay. Now, at some point, you began to use the term occupation in your correspondence. At what point did you determine that this was no longer a protest and that it was an occupation?
Well, a couple of points. First, when more people started to arrive, and secondly, when people were not leaving the parliamentary precinct. So there were those 2 points that really brought to light the fact that this was going to be more of an occupation as opposed to a protest. As I said, the police in our city are very used to handling large protests and large visits of state leaders and so on, but nothing of this magnitude has ever been seen, quite frankly, in any city that I'm aware of in Canada in the last 25 years.
So is it fair to say by Monday the 31st, after that first weekend, when the majority of the trucks were still there, that's when you determined that they were not going to leave anytime soon? Thereabouts,
either whether it was the Monday or the Tuesday, and then certainly that was solidified in my mind that they weren't going to leave on the weekends, when the weekends started to create this very tense situation where people were coming in from all over the region, and in fact, different parts of the country to come and support the protesters, and that's where the havoc and the chaos was created in our communities.
And was there ever a discussion that you had with either Chief Slowly or the deputy chiefs about blocking access to the additional convoys that were coming that second weekend to join the original protest?
I don't recall being in any meeting when that was discussed.
Did you raise the issue?
My bigger concern at that time, from recollection, was what can we do to ensure that the trucks don't go into the residential areas? Because we knew that the impact that would have, because we'd seen in the first couple of days the constant horn honking, and they had some train whistles on some of the trucks, and there was just unruly behavior on the part of these people who'd come and basically occupied our downtown.
So it wasn't a concern that there were additional convoys that were coming to join to kind of expand the footprint of the original convoy?
Well, I think there was concern, absolutely, because when you saw hundreds and then it turned out to thousands of people arriving with different pickups and 18-wheelers and so on, that this was going to be bigger than any of us had imagined.
Okay, but there wasn't a discussion to try and prevent that from happening?
Not in my presence, to the best of my recollection.
Right. Now, I want to take you to a document, which is a readout of a call that you had with the Prime Minister on January 31st, and it's ssm.can.nsc.402812. And so you had a call with the Prime Minister on the 31st, is that right?
That's correct.
And how did this call come about? Did he reach out to you, or did you reach out to him?
To be honest, I don't recall whether it was me to him or him to me.
Okay,
Not sure.
if we can just make that bigger so we can see. Okay, so you say hi, and as we know, these are summaries of the call. It's not a transcript, but it gives you a sense for what's being said. If we go to, right, so JW is when you're speaking, PM is when the Prime Minister is speaking, and so the second thing, second section there before the redacted portion, the second sentence, third sentence, you said, these people had their time and need to move on. We have been trying to get this across to the Chief of Police. Do you see that?
Yes.
And when you say these people, are you speaking about the protesters?
That's correct.
And you say, we have been trying to get this across to Chief of Police. So this is now Monday, the 31st, so right after the first weekend. And so what discussions did you have with the Chief of Police about this issue, about letting them or asking them to move on?
Well, I was interested in what the plan of action from the police was going to be in order to clear out the downtown core, because my sense was that this was not shrinking in size as people started to go back home. It was growing in size, so everyone could see that. And I stressed to the police, as you know, we can't direct the police on what to do, but certainly in conversations I had with Chief Slowly, He understood very well the importance of getting this situation resolved sooner than later because it would grow into a bigger issue.
So you had discussions with Chief Slowly over that weekend or on the Monday?
Sometime in that period, I don't know if it was a Sunday or a Monday, but, you know, I was in contact almost on a regular basis with someone from the police service, whether it was the chief or the deputy, Bell.
And so at some point you told him it's time to move on, we need to get these people out of here. Is that right?
No, I can't. As I said, I can't direct the police, but certainly I asked the questions. You know, what is the game plan to move forward? And the chief said that they're working on one, and I relayed that to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister wanted to get a sense of what was going on the ground and how this was affecting our city, in particular our residential community and the small business community, because as you know, we just got out of the lockout from COVID and restaurants and businesses could start opening. And then all of a sudden we have another lockdown imposed really by the occupiers who came here to disrupt our quality of life.
And at the bottom there, if we can just move it up a little bit. No, sorry, at the bottom, yeah. It says the turning point, so right after the redacted portion, you say the turning point is the Terry Fox statue, the tomb, Shepherds of Good Hope. People just can't fathom how this is acceptable. And so you're referring to the incidences that took place over the weekend with respect to the National War Memorial and the Terry Fox statue, is that right?
Yeah, I think what was happening was disgraceful. We had some people dancing on the tomb of the unknown soldier. We had other people urinating at the cenotaph. We had a group that went and stole meals from the Shepherds of Good Hope. We had and the mandate placards put on the Terry Fox statue. It was completely despicable behavior on the part of these individuals. We welcome protesters who are respectful of the law and respectful of our communities. The vast majority of these people in that kind of behavior were not being respectful, and I think we're hurting their cause, quite frankly. When you saw, you know, the Shepherds of Good Hope, who does such good work in Lower Town, in the Byward Market, having people bully their way in to get a free meal, that was just abhorrent.
And further down, you say Chief of Police said it's so volatile.
All right, some pretty stark witness testimony from the outgoing Mayor of Ottawa, Jim Watson, at the inquiry into the government's use of the Emergencies Act earlier this year. We'll continue to follow that story.